The elevator machine room was unlike any other place in the building. Nestled on the top floor, it was a world unto itself, filled with massive pulleys, cables thick as a man's wrist, and control panels with blinking lights that seemed to communicate in a language only understood by those who maintained them. The hum of machinery provided a constant backdrop, almost soothing in its monotony, like the heartbeat of the building itself. The space was dimly lit, with shadows dancing across the walls whenever someone moved near one of the few overhead fixtures. It was nearly 9 in the evening, and most of the building had emptied hours ago, leaving only the night security guard making his rounds on the lower floors. The air was thick with the smell of machine oil and metal, creating an atmosphere that was both industrial and strangely intimate. Marcus had been working as a building engineer for just over 2 years. At 32, he was younger than most of his colleagues, but what he lacked in experience, he made up for in enthusiasm and a natural aptitude for mechanical systems. He was meticulous in his work, always double-checking everything, which is why he'd volunteered to come back after hours to investigate the strange noise that had been reported in Elevator 3. His dark hair was slightly disheveled from running his hands through it in concentration, and his blue maintenance uniform was stained with grease from earlier repairs. Despite his professional demeanor, there was something boyishly charming about his eager approach to solving problems. Then there was Alex, the new IT specialist who had been hired to upgrade the building's security systems. At 29, Alex had already made a name for himself in the tech industry, known for his innovative solutions and ability to think outside the box. He was tall and lean, with glasses that he constantly pushed back up his nose when he was deep in thought. Tonight, he was supposed to be installing new software in the security office, but a server issue had brought him to the machine room to check on the elevator monitoring system. His presence was unexpected, and it added an element of surprise to what Marcus had anticipated would be a solitary evening of troubleshooting. The reason they found themselves alone in the machine room was purely coincidental, a perfect storm of scheduled maintenance and technical difficulties. Marcus had been called in to address reports of unusual noises coming from Elevator 3 during peak hours. The building manager was concerned about potential safety issues, and rather than disrupt the daytime operations, Marcus had offered to come back after hours to investigate. Alex, meanwhile, had been working on implementing a new security protocol that required access to all the building's systems, including the elevator controls. A glitch in the network had forced him to physically check the connections in the machine room, leading to this unexpected encounter. As the heavy metal door closed behind Alex with a resounding clank, both men looked up, momentarily startled by each other's presence. The machine room wasn't large, perhaps 20 feet by 30 feet, but it was crowded with equipment, creating a maze-like quality that made their sudden awareness of each other all the more surprising. Marcus was kneeling beside an open control panel, tools spread out around him like offerings to some mechanical deity. Alex stood near the entrance, a laptop bag slung over his shoulder, his expression shifting from surprise to recognition. "Oh, hey," Marcus said, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous room. "You're the new IT guy, right?" Alex nodded, taking a few steps forward. "And you're Marcus, from maintenance. I didn't expect anyone to be up here this late." There was an awkward pause as they assessed each other, two strangers suddenly sharing a space that rarely saw more than one person at a time. The hum of the machinery seemed to grow louder in the silence, filling the gap in conversation with its mechanical drone. "I'm checking out that noise in Elevator 3, Marcus explained, gesturing toward the control panel. "What brings you to this mechanical paradise?" Alex smiled, relaxing a bit. "Network issues. The security cameras on this floor aren't connecting properly, and I need to check if it's a hardware problem." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Speaking of cameras," he said, glancing around the room, "there aren't any in here. One of the few blind spots in the building. Management never saw the need since only authorized personnel are supposed to have access." "No cameras," Alex repeated, his voice taking on a different tone, lighter, almost playful. "So what you're saying is, whatever happens in the elevator machine room stays in the elevator machine room," Marcus finished with a laugh. "Though usually that just means I can talk to myself without security thinking I've lost my mind." The initial tension between them began to dissolve, replaced by a curious energy that neither man had anticipated. They were strangers, yet there was something familiar about their interaction, as if they'd known each other in some previous life. Marcus returned to his work, but he was acutely aware of Alex moving around the room, checking connections and making notes on his laptop. "So how long have you been doing this?" Alex asked, breaking the silence that had settled between them. Marcus looked up from the control panel. "Building maintenance? About 2 years here, but I've been in the field for almost a decade. Started right out of technical school. What about you?" "Been in IT long." "Since college," Alex replied, leaning against a nearby wall. "I was always the kid taking apart computers to see how they worked. Drove my parents crazy. They'd come home to find the family PC in pieces on my bedroom floor." Marcus laughed. "I can relate. My first project was our toaster. Mom wasn't thrilled when I couldn't put it back together." As they continued to work on their respective tasks, the conversation flowed more naturally. They discovered shared interests in science fiction movies and a mutual love for Thai food. The machine room, once just a workplace, began to feel like a private clubhouse where they could speak freely, away from the watchful eyes of colleagues and security cameras. After about an hour of working side by side, occasionally helping each other with various tasks, Alex closed his laptop and sighed. "I think I've done all I can for tonight. The server issue is more complicated than I thought." Marcus nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "I'm about done too. I think I found the source of the noise, just a loose mounting bracket. Simple fix." There was a moment of silence, neither man making a move to leave. The completion of their work meant they no longer had a reason to stay, yet something kept them rooted to the spot, as if the machine room had cast some spell over them, creating a space outside of normal time and obligations. "You know," Alex said, his voice softer now, "I haven't really connected with anyone since I started working here. Everyone's nice enough, but it's all small talk and weather discussions." Marcus nodded, understanding exactly what Alex meant. "It can be lonely, even in a building full of people. I spend most of my days talking to machines rather than humans." "At least the machines don't judge," Alex said with a half-smile. "I came out to my team at my last job, and things were never the same. That's partly why I took this position, fresh start." The admission hung in the air between them, a piece of personal history offered up like a gift. Marcus felt a surge of appreciation for this trust, this vulnerability shared in the dim light of the machine room. "I get that," Marcus replied after a moment. "I've always been private about my personal life at work. It's easier that way, especially in this industry. But sometimes I wonder if I'm missing out on real connections by keeping those walls up." Alex moved closer, sitting on a toolbox near where Marcus was working. "Well, here we are, having a real conversation. That's something, right?" There was a warmth in Alex's eyes that Marcus hadn't noticed before, a depth that went beyond professional courtesy. In that moment, the machine room felt even more separate from the rest of the world, a bubble where the usual rules and reservations didn't apply. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said, putting his tools back in his bag. "I've probably spent more time in this room than anywhere else in the building, but I've never really looked at it. It's always just been a place to work." Alex glanced around. "It has a certain charm, don't you think? All these machines working together, keeping the building moving. There's something almost poetic about it." "I never thought of it that way," Marcus admitted. "But you're right. It's like the heart of the building, pumping people up and down all day long." Alex stood up and walked to one of the massive motor assemblies. "Come check this out," he called over his shoulder. "The engineering on these older systems is incredible." Marcus joined him, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Alex pointed to various components, explaining how they worked together in a way that showed he had more than just IT knowledge. His enthusiasm was contagious, and Marcus found himself seeing familiar equipment through new eyes. "How do you know so much about elevator systems?" Marcus asked, genuinely impressed. Alex shrugged. "My grandfather was an elevator mechanic. I used to go with him on jobs when I was a kid. I guess some of it stuck." "That's amazing," Marcus said. "My dad was a plumber, but I never had any interest in following his footsteps. Too many horror stories about what people flush down toilets." They both laughed, and in that moment of shared amusement, something shifted between them. The laughter subsided, but the connection remained, growing stronger in the silence that followed. They were standing close now, closer than necessary in the spacious machine room. "I'm glad I ran into you tonight," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What were the chances, right? Both of us here, after hours, no one else around." Marcus nodded, suddenly very aware of his heartbeat. No cameras, he reminded Alex, though he wasn't sure why he felt compelled to mention it again. No cameras, Alex repeated, holding Marcus's gaze. Just us and the machines. The air between them seemed charged with possibility, with words unspoken but understood. Marcus had never considered himself particularly brave in his personal life, always playing it safe, keeping to himself. But something about this night, this room, this man standing before him, made him want to take a risk. I don't usually do this, Marcus said, his voice catching slightly. Talk about personal stuff at work, I mean. Alex smiled. Me neither. But this doesn't feel like work, does it? It feels like something else. Something else, Marcus echoed, trying to define the feeling. Something unexpected. They were silent for a moment, the only sound the steady hum of the machinery around them. It was Alex who finally broke the silence, his voice soft but clear. Can I tell you something? He asked. Something I haven't told anyone here yet? Marcus nodded, sensing the importance of the moment. Of course. Alex took a deep breath. Before I took this job, I went through a pretty bad breakup. 5 years together, and then suddenly it was over. He said I was too focused on my career, that I never made time for us. And the worst part is, he was right. The revelation hung in the air between them. Not just the fact of the breakup, but the casual confirmation of what Marcus had begun to suspect about Alex's sexuality. It wasn't a dramatic coming out, just a simple truth shared between two people building a connection. That's tough, Marcus said, genuinely sympathetic. My last relationship ended about a year ago. Different reasons, but the same feeling of failure, you know? Like maybe I'm just not cut out for making it work with someone. Alex's eyes softened. I don't believe that. About you, I mean. You seem like someone who cares deeply about things, about doing them right. That's rare. The compliment warmed Marcus in a way he hadn't expected. Thanks. I could say the same about you. The way you talk about your work, it's clear you're passionate about it. Maybe too passionate, according to my ex, Alex said with a rueful smile. Or maybe just passionate enough for the right person, Marcus suggested, surprising himself with his boldness. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility. The machine room, with its mechanical heartbeat and absence of watching eyes, had become a confessional of sorts, a place where truths could be spoken without fear of judgment. Alex moved slightly closer. You know, when I first saw you working here tonight, I thought about turning around and coming back tomorrow. I didn't want to bother you. I'm glad you didn't, Marcus said, meaning it more than he could express. Me too, Alex replied, his gaze dropping briefly to Marcus's lips before meeting his eyes again. Very glad. The air between them seemed to crackle with tension, not the awkward kind from earlier, but something electric and alive. Marcus felt drawn forward as if by some invisible force, closing the already small distance between them. I keep thinking about what you said earlier, Alex murmured. About no cameras. Marcus's heart raced. Yeah, Alex confirmed, his voice barely audible over the machinery. It makes me wonder what else happens in the elevator machine room that stays in the elevator machine room. There was a question in his words, an invitation that Marcus could accept or decline. For a brief moment, all the reasons to be cautious flashed through Marcus's mind. They worked together, they barely knew each other. This was a professional environment despite the late hour and lack of supervision. But those concerns seemed distant and unimportant compared to the immediate reality of Alex standing before him, eyes bright with anticipation. Marcus took a deep breath and made his choice. He leaned forward, closing the final inches between them, and pressed his lips to Alex's. The kiss was gentle at first, a question more than a demand, giving Alex every opportunity to pull away. But instead of retreating, Alex responded with enthusiasm, his hand coming up to rest on Marcus's shoulder, steadying them both. The kiss deepened, becoming more confident, more certain. Marcus's hands found their way to Alex's waist, drawing him closer until their bodies pressed together. The constant hum of the machinery faded into the background, overwhelmed by the sound of their quickened breathing and racing hearts. When they finally broke apart, both men were slightly breathless. Alex's glasses had fogged slightly, and Marcus couldn't help but smile at the sight. It was endearing, a small reminder of the reality of the moment amidst the dreamlike quality of what was happening. Well, Alex said, adjusting his glasses. That was unexpected, Marcus supplied, still not quite believing his own boldness. Wonderful, Alex corrected him, a smile spreading across his face. Definitely wonderful. They stood there for a moment, still close, neither wanting to be the first to step away. The machine room, which had been merely a workplace hours before, had transformed into something magical, a space where possibilities seemed endless and the usual rules didn't apply. So what happens now? Marcus asked, voicing the question that had begun to form in his mind. Alex considered this. Well, technically, we both completed the work we came here to do. We could leave, go our separate ways, pretend this never happened. Marcus felt a twinge of disappointment at the suggestion, though he understood the practicality of it. We could, he agreed reluctantly. Or, Alex continued, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. We could acknowledge that something special just happened here. Something worth exploring further. Hope replaced disappointment in Marcus's chest. I like that option better. Me too, Alex said, reaching out to take Marcus's hand. Much better. Just as they were about to lean in for another kiss, a loud clang echoed through the machine room, making them both jump. It was just one of the counterweights adjusting itself, a normal part of the elevator system's operation, but it served as a reminder of where they were. Maybe we should continue this conversation somewhere else, Marcus suggested, suddenly aware of how surreal it was to be having this moment surrounded by industrial machinery. Alex nodded. My thoughts exactly. Dinner, maybe? I know a great Thai place that's open late. Marcus smiled, remembering their earlier discovery of a shared love for Thai food. That sounds perfect. As they gathered their tools and belongings, preparing to leave the machine room, Marcus couldn't help but look around with a new appreciation. This space, which had been just another part of his job, would now forever hold a special significance. It was where something unexpected had begun, where two people had connected in a way neither had anticipated when they arrived. They made their way to the heavy metal door, Alex pausing with his hand on the handle. You know, he said thoughtfully, part of me doesn't want to leave. It's like once we walk out this door, we're back in the real world with all its complications. Marcus understood the feeling perfectly. The machine room magic might wear off, you mean? Exactly, Alex said. Out there, we're the maintenance engineer and the IT specialist. In here, we're just Marcus and Alex. Marcus considered this, then reached out to take Alex's free hand. I think we get to decide who we are to each other, regardless of where we are. The machine room didn't create this connection. We did. Alex squeezed his hand, a smile spreading across his face. When did you get so wise? About 2 minutes ago, Marcus admitted with a laugh. I'm usually terrible at this stuff. Well, you could have fooled me, Alex said, leaning in for one more quick kiss before pulling open the door. They stepped out into the hallway, leaving the sanctuary of the machine room behind, but taking the connection they'd formed with them. As they walked toward the elevators, ironically, their way down from the very machines they'd been working on, Marcus felt a sense of anticipation unlike anything he'd experienced in a long time. So, he said as they waited for the elevator to arrive. Thai food, and then what? Alex pressed the call button, a mischievous glint in his eye. Well, that depends on how dinner goes. But I have a feeling we'll figure something out. The elevator arrived with a soft ding, doors sliding open to reveal an empty car. As they stepped inside, Marcus couldn't help but look up at the ceiling, thinking about all the machinery above them that made this simple act of descent possible. The same machinery that had, through a series of coincidences and choices, brought him and Alex together. What are you thinking about? Alex asked, noticing Marcus's upward gaze. Marcus smiled, reaching for Alex's hand as the doors closed, just appreciating the unexpected benefits of elevator maintenance. As the elevator began its smooth descent, carrying them toward whatever would come next, Marcus silently thanked the machine room, with its mechanical heart and absence of watching eyes, for creating the perfect space for two people to find each other when they least expected it. Sometimes, he realized, the most significant connections happen in the most unlikely places, when we're brave enough to reach out and take a chance on something new. And as they reached the ground floor, stepping out into the quiet lobby of the nearly empty building, Marcus knew that whatever happened next, whether this was the beginning of something lasting or just a beautiful moment in time, he would always remember the night when two guys alone in the elevator machine room discovered that sometimes the absence of cameras can lead to the presence of something extraordinary. Total underscore char underscore count, 17,893.